J.R.R. Tolkien, a foreign English gentleman who was Catholic, author of The Lord of the Rings and other books, quoted a wizard in The Lord of the Rings as saying, or quoted an observer of a wizard saying, never go to a wizard for advice. He will tell you both yes and no. In delivering a concerned citizens report in favor of Joe Biden, I won't be uh, coloring the frame. I will tell you the downside of support for Joe Biden as well, at least for me. All through our nation's history, various people have fallen in love with the American ideal. Needless to say, people have taken advantage of the opportunities and done some disfavor to our history and estate. But Abraham Lincoln, for example, fell in love with the Constitution, with the idea of getting your mind around the notions that encapsulate the will of the people as the source of best representative government. There was a love that is shared with many in law for the law, and a trust that argumentation before objective judges will reflect the inborn character of benevolence in the human race, and the judgment will be good and in favor of taking care of our commonwealth. In God we trust simply means in ethical judgment as understood by competent men and women. There's idealism in that, jurisprudence. There's trust that through opening the mind with fair reason, that even in an adversarial system where people misrepresent, distort, truth will out, truth will come out, and the best judgment will be in favor of ethical review by persons who know the difference between right and wrong. It's trust in the will of the people to work together to comprehend what it is necessary to comprehend in fair administration of justice. There has been people who've fallen in love with the spirit of authenticity, not just the measurement of excellence in our sports and in our standards for education, but authenticity that is sometimes overlooked. Frederick Douglass loved the ideals of America and hated, rightfully, the hypocrisy that was due to bigotry and prejudice and opportunizing on biased laws. But in his representation of the Negroes singing in slavery, he overlooked how they sang and what they sang in ways that Zora Neale Hurston did not. Richard Wright of the Harlem Renaissance proved beyond the shadow of a doubt that a Black literary giant was superior in many ways to a white literary giant. Richard Wright compares favorably to Thomas Mann. He is an excellent writer, one of the best writers one of the most ingenious of writers, one of the most architecturally masterful of writers. His command of language, his command of plot, his ability to evoke are unrivaled. But when he put down Zora Neale Hurston, he made a mistake. Zora Neale Hurston fulfilled the authenticity of impoverished, what were then called Negro people. She captured the authenticity of the language estate and anthropology. He accused her of cartooning because it too closely resembled caricatures. Love for authenticity is one of the things that draws appreciation of the American spirit. Joe Biden is an authentic American politician. He believes in America's nationalist state. Now, when it comes to my grievance against the government of the United States, one of the issues is Mount Desert Island and what took place on Mount Desert Island. Peter Gabriel was thousands of miles away and projected on what was going on, his view, which was poisonous and libelous of what was happening. What happened on Mount Desert Island comes from the symbiosis in Hollywood between Woody Allen and the men who shot Serpico in the face. Serpico begins with Dede Allen. Dede is a name in the script. It is poison. They asked what became of little Jimmy's census, ignoring the terrible battery, because they saw Jimmy as someone who was sheltered and privileged, who angled out to have fun as a child. Is there something wrong with that? Is there something wrong with wanting to go to school, to meet people, to celebrate our existence and have fun? Well, Biden remembers that children could not have understood all of the conflicts in American society, the turning over of automobiles, much less joyriding stolen ones, the battery against Black people and peace protesters, both black and white, the hostility of the war in Vietnam, the criminal insanity of the Beatles and drug culture, the weathermen, all of the things that needed to be digested. He could possibly understand a child being taken to hair by people who wanted him brainwashed for human trafficking, as Penny, the celebrated social worker who lied about me at Pitt to Peter Gabriel, so did. They could possibly understand somebody who wanted to reach out to the ideals of diplomacy that had been abandoned by Reagan and the people who came after JFK to learn in a school about the history and historic legacy of our so-called adversaries. You could possibly understand somebody who was too young to comprehend the sabotage of enthusiasm and so-called fun for a scientific examination by the draft board of the mind of somebody who abandons duty. And forever and a day, they rake the coals saying, were you motivated by pleasure on Mount Desert Island? They had no, it was like Howard Cosell coming up to an assassination victim in the Wide World of Sports scene, lampoon, in the Woody Allen movie. Tell us, the microphone, interviewing a man, Latin American dictator shot to death on the steps of the palace. And they were even calling me a dictator for writing a letter saying a girl should not mock a man who was restrained towards her because she was coy, and converted it into the pleasure principle, and even projected their own rape drive on me, who has no rape drive. And they chemically castrated me, and they finally gave me Parkinson's. And where was Joe Biden when this was going on? He was like Peter Gabriel, remote from the action. He couldn't possibly know. I'm telling you, Joe, Will Zell was talking about a scheme to transform the human race by injecting the blood in the Poconos before AIDS happened. And he set this up supposedly in the name of the Green Party, who scribbled on my father's obituary. Don't you care about my father? Here's where I'd part ways with Joe Biden. He has a correctness detector. I have a bullshit detector. He can't go it alone against something like that. I have to. There's a difference there. And it's enormous gulf of faith involved in why I went about doing what I did the way I did. I don't have to answer stupid questions about my private life, but they forced me to, and they invaded me and they tortured me. Here's your answer. I wanted to get evidence that would stand up to my peers when they said they didn't want to see the evidence. The evidence is there anyway. They didn't have to listen to me saying, this is what Zell said. I managed to get Zell to confess to what he said and what they were doing. And they said, well, you deserved it. They're criminally insane. Nobody deserves what they did, especially a completely innocent person who was tortured. I'm dealing with the criminally insane. I plead with you for meaningful, direct, and thorough examination of the circumstances, evidence, and intervention to protect the victims of this terrible attack. It's a crying shame that nobody can measure up to the simple standard of common decency.